Hello and welcome to this video. In the previous video, we looked at why I dropped GitHub Copilot and started using Roo Code instead, because of the rate limits and so on. In this video, we are going to actually start using the products. The first thing is we're going to look at how to set up OpenRouter and how to set up Roo Code. We're also going to look at the importance of actually planning our work ahead of time, so we don't just start coding, because that's the difference between agentic coding and vibe coding, that we are planning everything and we're actually keeping control of our agents. Anyway, enough talk. Let's just get to work. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is that we have to create an account on OpenRouter.ai. So you go to OpenRouter.ai and you create an account. Once your account has been created, which is free, we can go here to credits, and here you can add the credits to your account. So you only add the amount you actually want to use, which means that you're not going to start using more money than you're not going to get a large bill at the end of the month. So you put in here how much money you want, like $20 or something like that, and add the credits. Once that is done, you go to keys and generate a new API key. We need this API key inside our Roo Code. So once you have your API key, head over to your Visual Studio Code, go to extensions, and here search for Roo, and you should see it up here. Once your Roo Code has been installed, mine is already installed, so I'm not going to do it again. You should see something like this. Of course, at first it will be over here, but I have put mine over here, so it looks like the GitHub Copilot. I like to have my AI on the right side and everything else on the left. Anyway, once you have your Roo installed, you can go to settings, and here you have the ability to choose your API provider. So as you can see, you have a whole list. So if you have, for example, a Claude or an Anthropic or OpenAI or something, DeepSeek API key, you can put that, choose that provider and put your API key. Now we are using OpenRouter, so I have chosen OpenRouter, and here I have inserted my API key, and that's it. Once that's done, you're finished. Now, as I talked about, one of the things about Roo Code is you have these different agents or modes, as they call them. You have your orchestrator, debug, ask, code, and architect straight out the box. And each of these different agents can run a different LLM behind the scenes. So for example, I like to run my orchestrator with the Gemini model. So as you can see, I'm running Gemini here. To set up one, you just go here. And up in the top here, we have the different configuration profiles. So you can create a new one if you want and call it what you want and choose your model. I have one called Gemini, and then on my coding, I also have one, and then I have these different, and then there's a default. So on my orchestrator, I'm running Gemini because I like the large context window that Gemini has. And then, for example, for my code, I'm running Claude Sonnet 4.5 because I like the speed and how good it is at coding my Claude model. Now, of course, you could also here use the new Opus model if you want to. Just keep in mind that the Opus model is just that much more expensive than a Sonnet model. So unless you really need to use the Opus model, I would stick with the Sonnet. And for my ask, I'm running Gemini again. Debugging, I am running a Claude 4 here. Again, that's the same. Let's just put that to the same one as coding because I find that's fine. And the architect, I'm also running Gemini. So once those are set up, and always remember to go back to the orchestrator because you should always start with the orchestrator. The whole idea behind the orchestrator is that it's the one where you give the prompt and it's going to start the different agents when it needs to. So it's going to hand task over to, for example, the coding agent who is going to do something and return to the orchestrator. And the orchestrator will then see if it lives up to the expectations, or else tell the coder agent again, please, you need to do something more, and give it back to the coding agent. And once that goes back and forth, and sometimes going to hand it over to debug agent and so on. So it's as it says, an orchestrator. Now, what's a little bit different about running Roo Code is that the Roo Code works best in the folder structure and not in the workspace. So as you can see down here, I have my workspace folder, hello, my workspace, but everything else here is in the folder itself. I'm running a multi-workspace setup here, so nothing special here. The only reason why I'm doing this is, of course, the more it's easier for the AI agent to understand our whole project if everything is inside the same folder, so it doesn't have to rely so much on dependencies. Then I have a Roo folder.roo, and this is where I actually place my different rules and so on for my Roo code. I have a commands, and inside my commands I have a commit. Now, commands is a way to store some prompts that you can run again and again and again as a something that does the same every time. So the commit here is pretty much it looks at everything you have in your Git staging and sees if it should be split into more commits and write a description and so on for you. So for example, now I can write down here, write my slash and then commit. Now slash is a way, as you can see, to get commands for the Roo. Besides that, I have some few rules I have set up. So my project is going to run with 50,100 to 50,200, and I should only be able to use that range. A little bit about naming conventions and what I'm targeting. So as you can see here, I'm not targeting BC24, I'm targeting BC27. So let's just fix that. Then I have a few coding standards about how to name my tables and objects and so on, about application areas, tooltips, some very straight up. Now, these rules are very simple, and I'm starting very simple right now. Normally I have a lot more rules, and we're going to create some more rules just in a second. But the idea here, of course, is that you create your rules and then you keep them like in a template. So every time you start a new project, you can take all of these rules and start on those. Now, actually, in my company, we don't have this rules folder. We are having an MCP server running with all our rules in, which is also a good setup if you're using a centralized where you have more developers who need to use the same rules. But for here, to keep it simple, I'm creating MD files for all my rules. Then we have the rule about the architecture, about using namespaces, and that I don't want to do the old setup where you have like tables, pages, a folder for each of those. I want them to be for each function that I'm creating for each area, much like you know for .NET with the namespaces. And then a little performance here about using find set and is empty, and very, very simple things. Then I got my MCP for JSON, which tells my Roo code what MCP servers I have available for it. I am using, of course, Microsoft Learn to be able to get the newest documentation. Then I have this one, Azure DevOps. I'm not going to use that in this video series, but normally I do work on Azure DevOps. And then I'm using the AL dependencies, which lets me look inside my symbol folder, the symbols, to see what objects are there, and it can read those as dependencies. Now, all of this you can find on my GitHub, and I will link to it in the description below, so you can take it as it is and use it and change it and whatnot. Anyway, I also have up here something called memory. At the moment it's blank. The idea behind the memory is it's a way to tell Roo Code what it's been working on, how far has it gotten. So when I shut down for the day, then I can tell it to commit that to memory. And tomorrow when I start up again, I can tell it to keep going, and it knows how far it's gotten, because otherwise the AI doesn't really know how far it's gotten. So it's really just some MD files that it keeps track of its work. So we're going to start off by adding some more rules. So I've cheated a little bit here and created some on the fly here. So we need to add some rules. Each rule should be in its own MD file. Object names must not belong on 30. Use design pattern singleton responsibility principle. Design pattern singleton. All code must be designed so that it is easily testable and by unit tests. Create unit tests for all code. All rules are for Business Central AL development. And then let's start that. So I'm asking Roo to add all these new rules. Hopefully it's going to make some new MD files for me. Of course, you can also do this directly in some kind of chat bot like Gemini or whatever, and then copy paste MD files. The good thing is here, like I also talked about earlier, is that you only make these rules once, right? And then you have a template that you keep on using, and then you can build upon the rules to make it more and more consistent. Because that's the whole thing about right now developing with AI is the more context, the more rules, the more it knows, the better results we're going to get. Now, I think down here you can see is I have a 9. That means I have told it to auto-approve all of these things. Everything except for questions, because questions I would like to be able to answer myself. I don't like the AI to answer my questions for me. But besides that, I have told it it's allowed to do anything. Up here we can see how much it's costing, how many tokens I've used. Out of 1 million, I've used 9,500, and it's cost me 6 cents so far. So you can keep a track of what it's costing to run these different commands. And see now the orchestrator handed the code over to the code agent to tell it to do something. And it started creating our rules. So the first one here is for the object name length, saying it must not be longer than 30, and why, and how to enforce it. And of course, a good idea is to read through all this to make sure that you agree on something, and you can always change it. This is just text, so there's nothing wrong with changing it. You're not breaking anything. And there's been a little bit debate on whether we should use MD files or you should use JSON files. And of course, JSON files is an easier language for the AI to read than MD files, but MD files are easier for us to read, and the AI can read also MD files. So the MD files is like the standard right now because it's both human readable and computer readable easily. Here it's the single responsibility principle about each code unit should only have one specific responsibility, so we don't have these very management code units or God code units as we used to call them. And you can see they're adding the different MD files directly to my rules folder. And then we have a singleton, by using the single instant code unit when it's needed. And our code should be testable. And it also gives some examples on how there's a good practice and a bad practice. And lastly, it's telling us where the test app is and how the unit test should be written. Okay. And now it's just finishing up. The coder is handling the result back to the orchestrator. But first, as you can see, first it's just verifying everything is there, saying everything is complete, what it has created, and hands it back to the orchestrator. The orchestrator will then look through the results it has gotten from the coder to see if it actually has performed the task that it has been asked to do. And that's one of the powerful things about using Roo Code, because I actually had a place where I told the orchestrator, I have this code. It's not 100% complete. Can you please complete it? And then the orchestrator handed it to the coding agent. The coding agent started coding something and then handed it back to the orchestrator and said, yeah, now it's 80% complete. And then the orchestrator said, oh, that's fine, but I want 100% complete. So please keep going, and hand it back to the coding agent. And that way I don't have to keep on telling the agent that it's not done, because my orchestrator is the one telling it what it has to perform and when it's good enough. So many times it's the orchestrator that we are talking to, and the orchestrator is talking to the different agents behind the scenes. So you can just view the orchestrator as our project manager, the one who is responsible for everything in the end. And it's done. Now we ran through the file they were created, so we're not going to run through them again. But now we have some more rules, and as I said, you should keep on building these rules and changing them whenever something is happening that is not correct. So instead of, for example, if you're doing something and it's wrong, don't just tell the agent right now to change that. Then it's actually better to figure out why something went wrong and then change the rules, and next time it won't do that same mistake. So it's always a good idea to start a new task, so it doesn't have the context of the last one. There's no need to mix everything together. Now we need to create the actual task description. Again, we can create this in a chat client, or we can get Roo to create it. But let's get Roo to create it. So we need to create a webshop integration in Business Central. We are going to be using the staging pattern so that the web shop can always deliver our data without the possibility of getting a data validation error. Therefore, all our fields in the staging tables should be text 1024. We need a header and a line staging table, which should be connected to each other. We also need API pages on top of these staging tables. There should also be a list and card page for the user to view data in our staging tables, so the user can edit the records if there is any data problems. We also need a code unit that can process our data, which will create sales headers and sales lines based on the records in the staging table. This code unit should both be possible to execute manually by the user from the user interface, or as a unbound action from an API. The staging table, staging header table should also have a status where it can be either pending, completed, or processed. Oh, not processed, sorry. Error, of course. If there are any errors when trying to process our records, these errors should be logged. Please create a implementation MD file with a description of these tasks and break them down into implementation phases. Do not start coding anything at this point. Only create the implementation MD file. Also, if there are any questions, please place these in the MD file also, so that we can answer them before starting to code. Okay, so this is a long one, but let's see what happens. Hopefully it's going to create us an implementation MD. The idea here is that instead of just asking to start coding, I would like to be able to plan everything ahead. So I'd like to actually have an MD file where it's going to tell me what it's going to do and how it's going to do it. And then it's easier for me to change that before I actually start the coding, because once we start coding, we'll have a lot of files and a lot of lines of code, and it's always a hassle to keep on trying to refactor that. So it's better to get everything up front with documentation, right? Now, normally this was of course where I wrote it directly inside my Roo Code. Normally I would go in my Gemini or my Claude and go back and forth to get this task description great from the beginning, and then copy paste it into. But just here, just to keep it inside Roo, I just did it this way, and hopefully it's going to give us the same result. Of course, when we're talking about AI, nothing is always the same. And actually, as a little bonus for you guys, this is the second time I'm recording this video. The first time something went wrong. So it's going to be fun to see if how different the things is going to do this time compared to the last time. How they're looking. For those who are interested, I might do that next video, look at it. But anyway, those who are interested, on my GitHub you can see the old branch, and then I'm going to publish this new branch. As you can see, it's called episode 2, the setup and the spec. The other one was just called part 2, I think. And then you can compare those branches and see how different it actually behaves depending on its mood, right? Because I'm trying to prompt it pretty much the same way. So it has created our implementation MD here. And then what it says, it has some questions for us. I've included a question clarification section in the document regarding field mapping. Now, I'm not going to answer these questions at the moment. I'll do that in the next one. So let's just say that this looks fine. I will answer if I can spell, answer the questions later, but do not start coding just finish the implementation MD file. Let's see what happens. So in the next one, we're also going to actually get a JSON payload and tell that these are the fields that you should create in these tables, because right now it doesn't know what fields we want. So it's just going to make a best guess. Otherwise, it looks pretty good, right? The only thing is that I would have liked this implementation MD not to be placed down here. So I might just move it afterwards, because right down there it looks like it's not part of anything. And that is not correct. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna drag and drop it up into the comment folder. At the moment that doesn't really make much of a difference, because the agent hasn't started coding anything right now, so it's okay to get the structure to change it right now. Okay, so it's done. And as I said, let's just move this up here in common like that. Now, remember I talked about memory, so let's initialize the memory for this project. And the way I do that is I write this: please initialize the memory bank structure for this project. And as I said, the reason why I use memory is that it's a way for the agent to know how far it's gotten and keep track of its work, and knows where to pick up when you come back to a task and what has been done and what hasn't been done. Right. So let's see what it's going to do. It's reading, seeing that we have our implementation MD. And it's done. It has created these different MD files to tell us about the different phases and next steps and everything. What we are creating, what the progress is right now. So right now we are on 0, has been initiated. We haven't done anything else right now. A little again overview over what our project is aiming to do. Some system patterns, and some text context about how Business Central is running. Now this did take a couple of minutes, right? It took like maybe 10 minutes. I did speed it up in the video so I didn't have to watch all of it. But now we are actually initialized and ready to go. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run my /commit command. If you can remember, this is my own command I have. That's going to look at my files over here in my Git and see if something should be split and how it should be documented. And once that's done, I'm going to push it. And then that's actually what we're gonna cover in this first video. But let's just see what it's going to do first, and then let's get back to the final thoughts and words. And it's done. So it has committed our code and written a small description of what it has done. So let's just publish that. And it's published. And as I said, let's get back to the final thoughts. So in this video, we set up OpenRouter and our Roo Code. We looked at how our Roo Code folder should be structured. And we also looked at how to implement rules and how to implement our documentation to get started, so everything is set up for us to start coding. And as I said, it's a funny thing is that this is the second time recording this video, so it's funny to see the difference between the first time doing with the same prompts compared to the second time with the same prompts. Because that's what the whole thing about AI right now is, that we don't really know what's going to happen, because it's thinking on its own, but it's going to make different choices every time. Anyway, that was it for this video. Hopefully you learned something new and you liked it, and hopefully soon we'll get part 3 up and running. Anyway, until then, take care and goodbye.